Hello, people. This chart is wonderful. These people believe it is necessary to believe in God to be moral. In other words, you can't be moral unless you believe in God, presumably. Right. I put the little red lines in to break things down into three sections. So let's start at the top with the top section. The United States of America in mustard colour. Conservatives, that's their mental prism ideology, conservatives. 67% of them think that you have to believe in God to be moral. Right? Up in the top section as well are people with no college degree, people over the age of 50, and women. Right. The middle section, all Americans. The whole of the US, right across the board, that's the average. Moderates come in next. People aged between 30 and 49 come in next, and then men in general. And then younger people 18 to 29, all blunked into that middle section. But we're still, through that middle section, just above and just below 50% of the people in those categories. In the bottom section, if you have a college degree in the United States, you're in the bottom section. And the other Americans in the bottom section are people that are prismatically liberal, whatever that is. And they are junked in with the Europeans. Germany, interestingly, between the liberals and the people with college degrees. And down at the bottom, under 20% are Britain, Spain and France. Under 20% of the people in Britain, Spain and France think that you have to believe in God to be moral. This is why economists aren't going to be very good at predicting things, because people are involved. Various types of people. Right, let's move on to the United States of America, and motorists face an avalanche of higher tolls. Tolls along the eastern seaboard are going up so much, says Darren Roth, that in 4 years a semi-trailer making the 4-hour trip from Baltimore to New York City could pay as much as $209. The price of tolls, in other words, will be more expensive than paying for the driver and fuel. And I've highlighted in the caption under the picture, many big toll hikes are helping to pay for new construction. Many big toll hikes are helping to pay for new construction. I remember the days when if you wanted to pay for new construction, you borrowed money from a bank to do it. That's the system of 100 years ago plus of many big toll hikes are helping to pay for new construction. In other words, you have to make the profits first and then invest them into new plant and machinery. That's how it was before the banks said, no, don't bother with that, just borrow it from us. So either that caption is wrong, or the mentality of people, or the whole economic structure is changing. Wall Street Journal opinion. When Harry Truman and Lyndon Johnson, separately of course, accepted the reality that they could not effectively govern the nation if they sought re-election to the White House, both men took the moral high ground and decided against running for a new term as president. President Obama is facing a similar reality, and he must reach the same conclusion. That's the Wall Street Journal, so you never know what their angle is. I mean, it's Wall Street Journal, that's a Murdoch paper, isn't it? So it just could be kick the nigger out, you know. You never know. But since he came over to France for the Cannes G20, he's been over to Australia, didn't he, to say we're going to put some troops in Australia. Otherwise, I've not heard a word from Obama at all. And there's an awful lot of things going on in the world, and I don't like to say it, but I think the world needs a strong hand of some sort of leadership, somebody that goes round banging heads together and saying, look, we need to do this, that and the other. Because all sorts of loose ends are just flapping around all over the place, and it just seems that Obama's just a loose end flapping around all over the place. The Hillary moment wouldn't be any better, but anyway, I wouldn't mind seeing a girl president. Okay, out in the real world and real house prices. Going back to 1970, they've zeroed the house prices around the world in 1970. So if they've gone up from 1970, it goes up, and if it's down, it's down. Of course, they have only ever gone down in Germany. Germany is different, eh? But let's have a look. Again, I've chopped them into 3 sections to make them easier to assimilate. But they are clearly in 3 sections on the chart. You can see the 3 groups of string. Now, at the moment, at the top is Belgium, whose government, there isn't a government, but there was a kind of a stand-in prime minister, and I think he's just resigned. Political mess in Belgium. They're holding their house prices up. They've actually kicked up. Now, in that group there is the Netherlands, whose house prices really haven't gone down either. And they're in a very similar region, so I imagine that Belgians are holding up because they're close to the Netherlands. I don't know, but something like that. Spain has, in next place, has come down a little bit from where it was, but really not that much. It's got an awful, awful long way to fall yet, and Spain is obviously, well, to my mind, Spain, the Spanish banks, and the reason is why they're going to fall. And the epicenter of the fall of the euro probably is in Spain, is because Spain has got a long way to fall with their house prices, and the banks just aren't up to it, and the government isn't up to falling in behind the banks. So the eurozone comes in behind the Spanish government or has to break up. The UK used to be the leaders there, used to be right at the top in green. They've slipped down into 3rd place with a bit of a fall back in house prices outside London. London's holding up. But we can imagine, because they were so high and above everybody else in the world, that they've got a long way to fall as well. Ireland have done a reasonable amount of falling, and Australia was up there and just starting to fall now. So that's the first group. Not much to say about the middle group, except the US is in there, and you can see a lot of talk has gone on about the great fall in rise and fall in house prices in the USA, and that's where they are in the world group. Very average, really. At the bottom of the middle group, Norway, Canada, France and Italy in that group, and at the bottom the very staid, kind of cold places, Sweden, Switzerland, Japan and Germany haven't been up, haven't been down. But that top group, if you want to focus to look where problems are, that's the place to look. Australia will go down when China goes down. Ireland, we know, is ruined anyway. The Netherlands, the UK and Spain and Belgium look, you wouldn't want to be investing anywhere near them. This is from the United Kingdom and how they're doing, which is shaky at the moment. There's nothing obviously horrible going on, but it's just all seems very much on a knife edge and very delicate and shaky. And this was out yesterday. These are the current finances by income group and how they think they're doing. The diffusion index is at 50. Means there's no change. They don't think there's any change in the household finances, and you can see all 3 income groups are below the 50, but the top one, the silver one, is the highest income group. They're obviously the least under 50, and they're heading back up towards 50. They reckon it's all right and they can push on again. And all income groups in the middle, and the lowest income group is obviously towards the bottom. It doesn't have to be. Just because you're a low income group, it doesn't mean that you have to be at the bottom. It just seems to happen that you are, and down at 25 and falling in the UK. There's just not enough meat on it. There's not enough middle that's doing well in the United Kingdom to hold it together. London and the people that are doing well, all well and good, but there's tens of millions of people that really are in very shaky financial state in the UK, and the whole overall thing is shaky. Let's go to finish with this. I'll leave her down if you leave her up. It's about all this macro stuff and austerity, that the UK is doing and the US is talking about. And governments that have shrunk down their deficits, the government deficit, and that's in the bluey grey. And what's happened then to what the private sector's done, which is in red. And as you can see, there's a general trend to it. These are the major shrinking downs of government deficit. Spain from 1995 up to 2000 to get into the euro, and then continuing with the boom. And in there is the up to 2000s are in there because these were to get the deficits under control to get into the eurozone. Spain's in there, Netherlands, Sweden didn't go into the eurozone, so it doesn't count. UK didn't, but there seemed to be quite a lot of that up to 2000. But if you look, the silver, blue, when it's looks quite big, that's the government deficits that's being shrunk down. So quite a bit in Spain, but commensurately a huge increase in the private sector that taking on debt. So the government shrinks its debt in blue, and the private sector expands its debt in red. Same in Japan, same in the Netherlands. With the Spain, that's the biggest government shrinkage that we've got on this chart, but the private sector expands its debt much more. Sweden the same, twice. Belgium the same. In the US, in 93 to 2000, again, because the country was doing so well, the government deficit was shrunk down, but the people were taking on even more debt. And you can see, to judge the other pro rata ones, that if you're American, you can see how the other countries were. And the UK, 94 to 2000, again, the country doing reasonably well. The government debt was being brought down, but the people were expanding. It looks like only Canada in 86 to 99 and that over a long period brought down their debt without the private sector, without the people expanding their debt. Sectoral balances. So all these countries that want to now shrink their government debt down, the debt will have to be taken on by somebody. Normally that would be the private sector, but if the private sector doesn't want to take it on, basically you shrink your economy down and you'll get a recession. The more you shrink your deficit down, the more the private sector don't take on more debt, the more the recession turns into a depression. Seems to be the math of it all. Bye.